Hey Preceptors, welcome to the fall 2019 semester. So hopefully you guys are off to a good start. I'm super excited about this fall semester because we are adding new clinical sites and new preceptors. So DMC is part of us now, and so are some Beaumont sites in addition to our amazing sites that we have at Henry Ford. So super really excited to have old but also new coming on board so we can have some really amazing experiences for our students. So I'm super excited about that. Um, I'm trying something new this year. I'm going to start to do these kind of like probably bi-weekly video announcements to kind of disperse some information because no one really reads emails, and video announcements are fun, and it's easy to quick for you to kind of watch and look at a video instead of reading an email to get some things. So I thought I'm going to give them a shot for this year. So the semester started, it's underway. You've had your students for about a week now, so hopefully things are going well. The students should have completed or be completing those student contracts, which onboards them to your clinical site to make sure they're looking at policies and procedures. And really, that's just to ensure that there's safety there and that the student's in a safe environment. And then the other assignment they have is the expectations. And that's when you and the student are going to sit down and kind of create some expectations for the semester. I will say that usually the number one factor as far as can sometimes result in issues or some concerns within clinical education experiences are the students and the preceptors have different expectations, or they're simply unaware. The student doesn't know what's expected of them, and the preceptor hasn't outlined that. And so the purpose of the assignment is to kind of establish that. So then when they have their mid-semester evaluation, and the criteria is meets expectations, and if they're exceeding or failing, they kind of have a way to go ahead and assess that, or they understand where they're coming from. So really making sure that you do that can gain some clarity and allow them to have really good experiences, and also kind of help open communication in order to establish a good relationship. Courses. So we have 2 cohorts this year, so we're very excited. So our first year students are going to be in their assessment class. And then their therapeutic interventions course, which is going to be predominantly focused on modalities, and then their integrative 1 course, which is tied to their clinical experiences, which is going to focus on acute and emergency care. Within assessment, it's the basics that they're starting with as far as how to perform a general assessment, documentation, SOAP notes, history, that's where they're at. And therapeutic modalities or interventions, they're learning the introduction to that. They'll be getting some implementation of evidence-based practice, and then we'll be going right into the healing process and the physiology behind that. And in integrative 1, they're going to be hitting a lot of their acute care skills that they learned initially. So they'll be revisiting things related to heat and cold, splinting, immobilization, and aspects related to that. Our second year students will be in their evidence-based practice course, which is going to be about implementing that, reading research, evaluating it, critiquing it, searching the literature, developing clinical questions. So don't be surprised if they're coming to you and saying, what evidence supports this, or what are you using to make these decisions, because they're going to be embedded in that. O&A is their organization and administration class, which will be learning how to manage things, develop an athletic training room, policies, procedures. So don't be surprised if they come to you and say, what are protocols or what are policies or how do you handle these situations, because they're going to be exposed to that in that course. And then the integrative 3 class is tied to their clinicals, and that's also going to build off of previous experiences. We're going to be focusing a lot on manual therapies, advanced therapeutic techniques such as, aquatic therapy, and we'll also be focusing on a sports performance and injury prevention program that they'll be conceptualizing. So you might hear them kind of reference or discuss that. Students will be doing competencies. Competencies are those mini kind of practical exams that they schedule with us outside of class time, and that's so we can make sure and ensure that they have demonstrated competence in an area that we feel is appropriate, and that's usually some type of physical skill or ability. First years have 8, and those are focused around acute care and emergency situations. Second years have 7, and those are focused on evaluation and rehabilitative techniques and some general medical conditions such as rhabdomyolysis and using otoscopes, auscultations, things like that. So if they're talking about competencies, or that's a good way to kind of maybe practice some skills to integrate that when you guys have some time in clinicals. Evalu. The students are documenting their clinical hours and patient interactions. As you guys know, You get a weekly reminder. So once a week, you'll get an email saying these are hours and these are the patient interactions. If it looks good, don't do anything. If something looks wrong on that summary sheet, contact me, and then I go ahead and fix it. And that's kind of it. And so I want to kind of end the video or the announcement with kind of a teaching technique or a tip. And so as we begin this new year, we really have to think about how do we get the student to kind of develop that critical thinking and foster that clinical decision making. So some of you have seen this, fostering clinical decision making. So if we can see that the first step is what we usually want to do is we usually want to go ahead and ask why, right? So why are you doing what are you doing? Why are you making that decision? So kind of get them thinking about the purpose of that. Then the next step we can go ahead and do is we can go ahead and ask them for an alternative option. All right, you're choosing this or this is the reason, but is there something else? Can we select another application or modality to get the same outcome? Could we, get the same result of that evaluation by using different special tests? So make them go ahead and kind of think of an alternative. And then ask for rationale, such as far as what is the rationale you have for your first, ask why. What's your rationale as to the alternative option, right? So they have to support that. They can't just say, because my preceptor does it or because I've seen it before. Have them give some rationale. And then towards the end here, we want them to then go ahead and make that decision and justify. So ultimately what we're going to think is once they get to this step, right, they're going to go ahead and have two options, 3 or 4 maybe if you really challenge them, and then they're going to have to make that decision. And maybe that's decision because it relates to evidence. Maybe that decision is because it's more on the patient values, or maybe it's just because this is the better option because it's going to achieve something physiologically. Whatever it is, we have to get them to that end point for them to then make that decision. So that's kind of my quick little tip. You guys have seen before probably, and so just some way to kind of foster that clinical decision making so we can kind of get things going off to the right start for this fall semester. As usual, if you have any questions or concerns, contact me. I'm always an email or a phone call away, and looking forward to working with you guys all this semester. Thanks.